The common causes of stroke being thrombosis, embolism, and hemorrhage. Common causes. These three only you have to tell in the exam first initially. Afterwards, you can add extradural hemorrhage, subdural hemorrhage, upper canal hemorrhage, ICS, etc. You can add. But initially, you have to tell thrombotic stroke, embolic stroke, hemorrhagic stroke only. Commonly, emboli they arise from the left atrium of the heart. For example, in case of mitral stenosis, one can develop a situation. Thrombus can get discharged and it can go into one second. Hemiplegia or hemoptysis. We have to tell commonly. Thrombosis means common background being hypertension, diabetes, mellitus, sleeping can be there. Atherosclerosis, thrombosis in the extracranial vessels which can block the capillary arteries and one can get arterial embolism or thrombosis. Usually hypertension is the background which can produce intracellular bleed or intracellular hemorrhage. One type of embolism is there, that is a paradoxical embolism. That also you have to keep in mind. And this immediately in the patient due to any other problem, lower limb will get the deep thrombosis, which can dislodge and it will go into pulmonary thromboembolism. If there is a ASD, VSD, PDA, this same emboli can go from right heart to left heart. It will go into again into systemic circulation and goes to vein. That is called paradoxical embolism. So commonly these questions will be asked: thrombotic stroke, embolic stroke, systemic the hypertension resulting in stroke, and paradoxical embolism. These other causes being hypercoagulable syndromes, which can produce cerebrovascular accidents or hypoperfusion due to diarrhea, vomiting, etc. Where there is a depletion of the fluids in the body, which can produce a stroke. That are the other common causes of cerebrovascular accidents. These are pathophysiology, you need not worry. This already have understood the circle of Willis. So the patient can come to you with history of weakness of the one half of the body. So left half of the face, left upper limb, left lower limb, weakness can be there. Left half of the face, left upper limb, left lower limb, where you may have to localize the level of lesion. Localization of level of lesion either in the cerebral cortex or in the internal capsule or in the brainstem, that is commonly this pons or even the cervical spinal cord above C5 level. These areas you have to remember. As I told you already, the cerebral cortex involvement, there will be weakness of the one limb may be more than the other limb, with or without the weakness of the face. And usually they present with a seizure activity or unconsciousness can be there. Dysphasia or aphasia also can be there in cortical stroke. In case of the internal capsular lesion, patient may have dense hemiplegia. That's mostly this upper limb and lower limb. Total weakness will be there. Zero power can be there, and patient may have consciousness, loss of consciousness. They may be there, it may not be there. When you come to the brainstem, for example, in the pons, where we have the fifth, sixth, seventh cranial nerves, and along with eighth cranial nerve also. For example, if you take pontine hemorrhage or pontine infarction, patient can have weakness of the face ipsilaterally with the contralateral upper limb and lower limb weakness. That's what we call cross hemiplegia. Hitherto we have seen cortical hemiplegia or internal capsular hemiplegia. Now we are seeing pontine hemiplegia. That's also called cross hemiplegia. Spinal hemiplegia is one more area where the lesion will be there in the spinal cord, usually in cervical spinal cord above C5 level. That's what we call Brown-Sequard syndrome, where three long tracts we are supposed to tell. That is pyramidal tract and posterior columns on the ipsilateral side of lesion, and the spinothalamic tract on the contralateral side of lesion. The pathway of the spinothalamic tract, posterior columns, and pyramidal tract we have discussed already. A few points again, if time permits, we will try to recapitulate. Hemiplegia is an example of upper motor neuron disease, and it is an example of pyramidal tract disease. These three words you have to keep in your mind. Pyramidal tract is an example of upper motor neuron. Upper motor neuron disease, best example is hemiplegia only, which you are seeing in warts. Where if you examine the patient, there will be weakness on one half of the body. With there will not be any loss of muscle mass. There will not be any loss of muscle because it's upper motor neuron lesion. There will not be loss of muscle mass. But after some time, after 1 year, he may have atrophy. That is what we call disuse atrophy. Whereas in the case of lower motor neuron lesion, where anti-RON cells, some other things they are involved, there will be atrophy. And if you see the tone in the hemiplegia, there will be initial stages of hemiplegia. There may be sometimes hypotonia or atonia can be there, which is due to acute neuronal shock or acute cerebral shock or acute spinal shock. But in case of lower motor neuron disease, there will be hypotonia or flaccid paralysis. So after 3 weeks only, usually patient goes into hypertonia, which is a spasticity. In case of upper limb, it will go into flexion attitude. In lower limb, it goes into extension attitude. That's what we also describe in the hemiplegic attitude or gait. Upper limb will be in flexion attitude and lower limb will be extension attitude. And the flexion of the upper limb is not due to the increase in power. It is due to increase in tone in the flexor group of muscles. So for example, if you take shoulder joint, the flexors of shoulder joint, they are the anterior muscle, anterior fibers of the deltoid and the pectoralis major. They go into hypertonia, and the patient will be having adduction. That means to say the pectoralis major and the latissimus dorsi both will functioning, and thereby it goes into adduction and internal rotation. So flexion, adduction, and internal rotation will be there at the shoulder joint because of increase in the tone, not because of increase in power. In the elbow joint, the flexor they dominate. In the wrist joint also flexors will dominate. Only in the hand, the metacarpophalangeal joints they will be in extension, and the other fingers they go into flexion. If you remember the metacarpophalangeal joints which go into extension, the all areas they will be flexion only. Quite opposite happens in the lower limb. The all extensor group of muscles they will go into hypertonia. That you have to remember to say which group of muscles they have gone into hypertonia. That is a flexion attitude in the upper limb and extension attitude in the lower limb. And the motor power also you are supposed to examine grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is not, you have to examine. Grade 0 is no power. Grade 1 is a little flickering of movement will be there. Grade 2 is a elimination of gravity from side to side movement. And grade 3 is against gravity. Grade 4 is against moderate power. And grade 5 is against full power. So motor power examination is a must in examination. If you go to reflexes, the superficial reflexes they are absent in case of hemiplegia on one half of the body. If right side cerebral cortex or indicative lesion is there, it will have absence of superficial reflex on the opposite half of the body. And deep tendon reflexes they will be exaggerated. So what are superficial reflexes? Usually we are supposed to examine in the head and neck region. We see corneal reflex and conjunctival reflex. Usually, though we have pupillar reflex also is there, and a jaw jerk is there, which is the highest deep tendon reflex. There are superficial reflexes in the head and neck region. If you go lower down in the abdomen, we have abdominal reflexes. The spinal segments covering is T6 to T12. and in the lower limbs we have the plantar reflex, lower down. These areas you are supposed to keep in your mind. What is apparent and different for corneal reflex? Apparent is fifth cranial nerve, different is seventh cranial nerve. For pupillary reflex, apparent is second nerve and different is third cranial nerve. These are all not there in this chart, but familiarly I am telling that also. You are supposed to examine. Jaw both apparent and different being fifth cranial nerve only. In the lower limb, upper limb and lower limbs, what are deep tendon reflexes you are supposed to see? In the upper limb, in the biceps jerk, tricep jerk, and supinator jerk. In the lower limbs, you are supposed to see the knee jerk and ankle jerk. Grade 3 reflex is hyperreflex, what we call. Grade 4, there is tonus is there, we tell it as a grade 4. So you are supposed to examine the nutritional bulk of the muscle mass, then plus tone you have to examine in the upper limb and lower limb, and next motor power examination, then reflexes in the form of superficial reflexes and deep tendon reflexes. Example of failures also is equally important, but usually they ask about the facial paralysis, which is upper motor type, lower motor type. That's what they commonly ask. All these 12 pairs of they are supposed to examine and keep in the tabular form, right and left, you have to keep. But let me have to focus on the facial paralysis, whether it is upper motor type or lower motor type. As I told you, the important points to observe in the face itself. What are the face called or not?
Huh?
Facial paralysis, the lesion may be either in the cortex or internal capsule. Whereas in case of brainstem, that is Fontaine lesion, patient will have lower motor type of facial paralysis. That too, ipsilateral lower motor type of facial paralysis with contralateral upper limb and lower limb weakness will be there. Whereas in case of upper motor lesion, where lesion is there in the cortex or the internal capsule, patient will have weakness of the face, upper limb and lower limb, all will be there in the opposite side of the lesion. And that facial paralysis is of upper motor type, where upper part is not involved and lower part is involved. I am telling a little bit fastly, but if you have any doubts, you can contact any of our faculty to have further clarification regarding same aspects in future. Apart from this, facial nerve also can be involved other areas in the cerebellopontine angle, the internal ear, middle ear, and in the posterior middle ear, and cerebromasseter foramen, and substantial parietal gland, neuromuscular junction, and facial muscles. They may ask you in the examination, how do you differentiate how do you identify unilateral, bilateral, upper motor type of facial paralysis or bilateral, lower motor type of facial paralysis? You must have some clues in your mind. So, side by side, I'm telling about the facial nerve also, which has got some motor component, salivation, taste, emotional. Some of you who are posted in the ward, they must be knowing 2 points. It has got the motor facial nerve component, lacrimetion, salivation, taste, and emotional fibers, and it has all important point, important reflex, corneal reflex, and stapedial reflex also. Listen to this carefully. In case of upper motor lesion, where you are taking an example in the either in cortex or the internal capsule, patient will have only motor power in the motor involvement, motor component involvement. That too, on the continental side of the lesion, the lower part is involved, upper part is not involved. Where in that type of hemiplegia, if you examine for the lacrimetion, salivation, taste, it will be intact. The corneal reflex also will be intact. Most of you will be telling me the corneal reflex is lost. That is not so. The apparent difference of the corneal reflex is the fifth and seventh cranial nerves. They are intact in case of internal capsular lesion or cortical lesion. That's why if you do corneal reflex in the hemiplegia, that will be intact. Lacrimetion, salivation, taste, their centers are located between the pons and medulla. So thereby they are also not disturbed. So what happens in the case of hemiplegia? If you write a patient or examination, the corneal reflex will be intact. Lacrimetion, salivation, taste also will be intact. Sometimes it is spontaneous hemiplegia is there where the facial nerve is involved, or some other lesion like Bell's palsy, they are supposed to localize level of lesion. Whether the lesion is there in the palms, which is detrimental, like usually that type of cases we don't keep in the examination. But patient may have seventh patellar nerve and sixth nerve palsy, also ipsilateral palsy with contact upper limb and lower limb of Pontine lesion or cerebral abandon angle tumors. One can have get facial nerve paralysis or fracture middle cranial fossa or a cholesteatoma eroding the facial canal, producing the element of a facial paralysis or herpes simplex or herpes zoster can involve the facial nerve in the posterior or the middle ear or disease of the pituitary gland or surgery of the pituitary gland. There can be involvement of the facial nerve or neuromuscular junction is bilateral only or facial nerve involvement. Point here is bilateral upper motor and upper facial paralysis. Lesion is there in the capsules. Patient may have exaggerated jaw jerk. Exaggerated jaw jerk will be there. The weakness upper part, lower part of face. You will have exaggerated jaw jerk. It will be intact. Intact. In case of bilateral upper motor and upper facial paralysis, that point you have to keep in your mind. Sorry. Sometimes carotid artery can be blocked. Internal carotid artery itself can be blocked, where the patient will have ipsilateral loss of vision in the ipsilateral eye, and you will have contralateral either complete or incomplete hemiplegia. Because as you know, internal carotid artery gives first branch ophthalmic artery. So block if it is there proximal to the organ of the ophthalmic artery, patient will get loss of vision on the ipsilateral eye, and with contralateral complete hemiplegia or hemiplegia or contralateral homonymous hemianopy also can be there. Contralateral homonymous hemianopy also can be there. If thalamus is involved, patient will get either hyperesthesia or anesthesia depending on the type of lesion. If thalamus is also simultaneously involved, patient may get hemianesthesia or that is a hyperesthesia or hemianesthesia. We'll go for the next question. So I have told already in the flow. I have told how do you see all this sensory system examination. Though you're supposed to keep in your mind joint positions, vibration, etc., but you will not have time in the examination. But motor system examination is a must in the form of nutrition or bulk of the muscle mass, tone, power, reflexes, etc. You are supposed to examine in detail. Investigations, the sky is the limit usually. The patient will have background of diabetes, mellitus, hypertension, dyslipidemia, so heart problem can be there. So depending on the background illness or risk factors like diabetes, mellitus, smoking may be there, alcohol can be there, different risk factors, sedentary life, old can be there. So depending on the background diseases, you have to ask right from the hemoglobin examination up to the latest examination like so CT, MRI, nerve conduction tests, everything you are supposed to ask. But in that, the importance of the CT is it will exclude hemorrhage stroke immediately. If hemorrhage is there, certain drugs you are not supposed to keep, particularly antiplatelet drugs, they are contraindicated in hemorrhage stroke because there will be hypertension. You are supposed to treat the hypertension properly. In case of ischemic stroke, which is due to either thrombosis or embolism, you have to keep certain drugs. That's the golden period is there. Less than 3 hours if the patient is in your area, and so if the stroke unit is there, you can start thrombolytic drugs, particularly old drug like streptokinase and new drugs like alteplase, retiplase, etc., you can start immediately after receiving the patient. Otherwise, you are supposed to keep antiplatelet drugs, particularly the clopidogrel and aspirin. They are commonly started in case of ischemic stroke. Anticoagulant therapy also has got some role, but in case of cardiac disease like mitral stenosis, left chamber and thrombosis is there, refibrillation is there, you may have to start anticoagulant therapy, either oral or parenteral. Particularly warfarin therapy, long period you have to use, where you have to monitor the patient with PTA, prothrombin with INR also. So all these oral anticoagulants, parenteral anticoagulants, antiplatelet drugs, thrombolytics, you must be in thorough. So what are the supposed things you have to do at the time of discharge with respect to patient? So a good physiotherapy. So what are the common cause of death? The patient, if it is unconscious and if it is in immobilization, he will get a lot of respiratory infections, deep in thrombosis in lower limbs. Patient usually will not die with directly due to hemiplegia. He will die with respiratory infections or deep in thrombosis resulting pulmonary thromboembolism. Within the minutes he will die. These are preventable causes. So posture change, physiotherapy, etc. You have to give advice, nutrition, assistance of the nutrition with the rice tube. Then treating the comorbid conditions like diabetes mellitus, hypertension, dyslipidemias. If any heart problem is there like mitral stenosis, etc., you have to adjust into that area also. So plus the periodic examination with periodic investigations with the same investigations again and again. So what advice you want to give to the patient? A careful nursing, a good physiotherapy, periodic monitoring with other special tests, and what else you require? A close inspection of the patient. Even if he is unconscious, you have to tell something, a good words to his ear, because he must be able to hear. Is it not? So some good words if you tell, that soothes his mind condition also. So I cannot talk as we please near the patient. That patient is having hemorrhage or stroke, or he will leave the world immediately like that. Also, cannot go on telling near the patient. These are all things non-pharmacological management of any particular disease. I think some more points we can deal after some time, or some other system also we can cover in the next class. So read well and stay home. Stay safe. God bless you all.
వాడు వీడియో కాల్ చేస్తే ఊరు గుర్తు పడి ఉంటాడు.
No interruption.